here living the authentic life. This week we've been to Monaco, back to Houston, off to Galveston, and now these ladies are going to take us back to Great Britain. We have two fabulous Brits who are fashionable women who also have such a strong commitment to the world of art, who really believe in community, connection, expressing yourselves through what you wear, what you produce, what you create. And I'm just so happy to have you both as guests.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
Yes. So Elizabeth is a prior guest, and we've talked about your incredible pieces, and I had the honor of touring your gallery and seeing them in person.
Yeah, just recently.
And coming from a background of stone and marble and granite for 22 years, I just felt so much depth of layers with what you were producing and what you were creating. And I feel so much emotion from that. And I think that really comes from what we find in nature. And I think you've done an incredible job of featuring the bee, the butterfly transforming, the power of the lioness, which I'm really responding to. And then I find it so interesting, Max, that you and your collection this year, when you're coupling with an artist in collaboration, are featuring this beautiful piece also with gold, with light and dark, with layers and depth. And when I read about your mindset behind your brands, it's just so similar about the fierceness of the woman and connecting to the light and dark and the positive and the negative and the trauma. You even use that word. So we're going to start with Maxine Trowbridge, actually from Dallas more recently, actually a Houstonian. But
sure, exactly, yes.
Very much.
Exactly. So I don't even tell us tell us how this even came to pass, because you've had an incredible history with media companies and to land in fashion. Sometimes it goes the opposite way.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been a long time coming, really. I started off in fashion, and then the bulk of my career has been in media, and then it's kind of like, I was talking with someone the other day, like, I'm doing plan A. It's like, most people talk about their plan B, right? I feel like I've been living my plan B and I'm circling back to my plan A. And plan A was always, I studied fashion. I wanted to be a designer, and I started out that way and got lost along the way. And so now it's like, it's full circle and I'm back to that. So yeah, I started about 3 years ago. But part of doing the designing was always to collaborate with an artist, because I've been involved in the art community for quite some time in Dallas, Contemporary. So I really wanted to pull an artist in, and this is my first collection. I've only done 3. I only do 1 collection a year, which that's another subject to talk about, but I only do 1 collection a year, and this is my first female artist that I'm working with on this collection, Pakistani American. Her name is Ambreen Butt. And this piece that we selected is exactly that. It's this focus on light and dark, positive, negative. There's elements of gold in the original artwork. There's 24 karat gold leaf in the work. It's painted on tea-stained paper, and then she makes these markings. It's like miniaturist painting markings. Anyway, so art is a big part of what I focus on.
And I have a dear friend who's from Pakistan, and I was so surprised to find out that young girls there aren't educated and that they're just even reading as a special thing for them to be able to do. And it is interesting for us to look at countries around the world and see what opportunities we have being born as Europeans or born as Americans, as women, and even young boys, and we take it for granted. So it's truly amazing to offer her a platform to share her values in that. And I think it's so beautiful. It looks like an animal print to me, but
Everyone
so
says
much more
that.
interesting.
Yeah, I just saw Anne Breen yesterday,
Uh-huh.
and she said the same thing. It was the first time she saw the print, and she was amazed at how you see your artwork transform onto a print and how it takes this almost different life to it. And she said that everyone says that it's like it's turned into like this almost animal print, like camouflage in a way, which inherently that was not what it was.
Fascinating.
I think that's just the instant recognition that you get because you're associating it with clothing, and so when we see something in that colorway,
that color combination, it changed into this print. Like anyway, so.
And you feature so many beautiful animals, and the cats, and the coats, and where did that heart of passion, like, tell us a little bit about that?
I think I've just always been drawn to nature, which always sounds like a little bit cliche, but I'm very, because like, everyone loves that.
Exactly.
But quite a strong passion for it from being a very young age. And it was sort of my starting point to when I moved from the design world really into the art world. It was kind of like more of a starting point to study something that I felt that I loved, and it, I think that's all we can do is follow something that we really want to do rather than something that we see that should be set out for us. And a lot of people told me, you shouldn't, it can be a bit cliche, blah blah blah. But I think hopefully what I managed to do and what my collectors tell me is that I capture like a soul of the animal. So when you look at the animal, that I'm trying to create a human connection, so this like human emotion between us, or a shared emotion, should I say, not just a human emotion, but a shared emotion between these like sentient beings. So I'm trying to pick out the parts of the animal and capture its soul, and so we can relate to it. And for the lionesses and these big cats, I think they're so fiercely feminine that and they teach me a lot. So this has been like for probably about the past 3 years I've been painting big cats, but I think they teach you a lot when you're staring at them, and how sure they are. They just behave in the way that they need to behave in. They take what they need, they take what they want, they don't apologize for it. They are just so beautifully them. And that I could say about any animal as well. When the bee just behaves and does its thing, and I think we can learn so much from watching them when we're being frantic and running around and being pulled in different directions and distractions. They're so authentic, aren't they? They can't not,
and they have their purpose and their mission, and they're not distracted by all the fuss around them.
Meaningful.
And they know where they're going, and it's so I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar really just resonated with me, and we've talked about this. I said I would love to feature this, but I don't know how Rob will react to that, but obviously he knows I'm a strong woman. There's no confusing that, since he calls himself Mr. Contessa. But I don't know, we need art on the wall to remind everybody. But I do think it takes us as women a while to find our voice. And we can roar. What I actually said to my mom maybe 5 to 7 years ago is, I spent so much time thinking Dad was the strong one when really you were the strong one.
Interesting.
And you said the least, but you had the most strength and the most conviction.
Wow.
And I see that you're teaching Darcy that, which is really...
Hopefully, yeah. I still feel like I've got a lot to learn myself, and the unlearning. But I think the meditating, whilst meditating on these animals whilst I'm painting, they do sort of bring out a lot of that. And there's a lot of philosophy in there as well, I think, too. So I get probably more from them than I could give back to them. But it's about being that we are part of nature. We're not separated from it. I think.
And we saw that with the cow cuddling.
Oh,
girl. When the cows
talk about that,
laid on us,
went down.
And you felt this incredible connection with this huge animal that you never.
So you cuddled the cow?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do for my 40th birthday. So I took a group of very glamorous women.
We were a little glamorous for cuddling.
Who I didn't know how they would respond, but everybody's reaction when I said that's what I wanted to do was like, okay, yeah, great. So we took a bus out. It's only about 30 minutes, isn't it, from Houston? And you go to these cows. They've come, the first pair that they had were rescues. And they're this like indigenous cow to India, but it can withstand high heat, so it's perfect for Texas. And they're just loved, and all the cows that they now have are their babies, are this rescue pair of babies. And you just lie on them, you stroke them, they love it, they lie on you. And yeah, having the weight of like an animal and the trust, it was like a real privilege.
But I kind of want to go back to that where you said we have to untrain ourselves. So it's sort of what we did with the cows, right? Is they were untrained. They were taught that we were safe, but we had to change our behavior for them to be safe. And I love that you said that you went the opposite direction, because I spent a whole 22 years doing something different before I found my passion. But it is interesting that no matter what category you're in, if you have passion, even if the other people in the space don't care about what you're doing, they can get excited because people want to be with people who come alive. And I think it's so interesting that you're finding a way to do this with clothing and in a very sustainable way, and doing it with domestic production. And talk a little bit about this philosophy where it differs from just consuming everything that comes our way.
Yeah, I think overall we all consume too much. I mean, it's crazy how much we buy and we purchase, and this kind of fits in with your business, right? In the sense of like recycling, repurchasing. I just think we need to slow down. I think we buy too much, and so, people, always have an opinion when you say, well, I only do one collection a year. Well, it's like, how can you do one collection a year? It's typically, designers doing 6 or 4, and to come out and say I'm only doing one collection is kind of going opposite against the traditional model of doing things. So I'm finding my way, my path of doing it my way, and that's what I believe in. One collection, one artist, and doing it for the entire year, and that's to say I will have various edits based on the one collection, as opposed to recreating 6 months later, creating a whole new collection and starting over. I just think that's a lot of excess. And the work that goes behind creating just one collection is so vast that we, unless you're in it, you don't realize how much you're creating everything over again every 6 months, every 3 months. So to just do it once and then edit that, and obviously add a little change, but repurpose what I've already created for that collection, essentially. And I never say I'm sustainable. I think it's hard for any business to say that. I'm conscious of what I'm doing. I'm not perfect. I've only just started. There's a long way to go. It's a journey. So I say it's a conscious journey. So I try to make decisions on my business that, while they might not be perfect now, the goal is to, make better choices. So I work with natural fabrics, and I select sustainably certified fabrics, and then I try to work with dead stock. So those are kind of that's my fabric policy. And then I try to select trims that are sustainable in some way. So buttons are made of nuts, and that sounds so horrible to say, but they don't even look like a nut. But this is the way they're remade. So it's just trying to make those conscious decisions on how can I make this a little different.
And are there people in your life, or are there parts of your lifestyle that inspire you to choose what to add, since you are creating more capsule collections that are more specific? Are there things in the past you look to, things for the future? How do you sort of weigh all of that?
Yeah, inspiration. I have a design partner who's in Paris, Sumudra, and he's been a delight, because he's probably, other than close friends and family, he's the only person that's known me since I'm 19-year-old fashion student.
Wow.
And so we have known each other, you know, since then. He's with me on this journey, and I get inspiration from him. He's in Paris, so it's very much, we met in London, so there's this very much this kind of, and he's originally from Jakarta, Indonesia, so the two of us have very different outlooks, yet very similar in the way we see things. In my daily life, I mean, I'm interested in contemporary art. There's a lot of, he's interested in dance and ballet. I mean, there's these different worlds colliding together in our inspirations. I can't really say that there's anything, one thing that inspires us. It's kind of culturally what's going on in the moment, right?
Well, I was particularly drawn to your two-piece tuxedo suit and the pants and the jacket. And I think sort of every length of skirt, every type of pant, from wide to narrow to, there's an incredible moment in time where we're not completely dictated by a trend. But I think there are so many really lasting, your interpretation of the trench coat, that was a different twist with that in the form of a dress.
Yeah, and you're touching on something that we believe in, Smudge and I believe in, which is timeless and seasonless is a big part of what we do. So, you know, trench coat, I mean, it's infamous, right? That's never gonna go away. It's even, you know, now it's a big thing. And when Smudge and I started working together, I'm like, oh, I really just want to put something trench coat in the collection. It's just this timeless, iconic piece. So yeah, a lot of the styles or silhouettes, as I call them, we design based on something being timeless. It's an addition to your wardrobe that's going to be there forever. Our kind of motto is, much like an art collection, I believe in, we should create our wardrobes much like we would curate or hope to create an art collection for our homes. So there's that kind of tandem conversation going on between the two. So making products that are seasonless and timeless that will always stay in your wardrobe.
And I mentioned that to Elizabeth when it came time to curating. I've purchased my first incredible piece from her, and I was hesitant because I'm not a collector. I have pieces in my home because Rob is a collector of basically every category you could think of. Really? So he had so much already. I was like, is there room for me to add any more to this other than the closet? But I was a little intimidated, you know, to ask about price and to know how to start and to know. So let's talk about curating a collection of art. I love that you've shared that you also have different types of clients that work with you. Some that do buy pieces every year, some that are working towards one significant piece. Like what is the perception or what is the reality of how it all works?
I have to remind myself of that, because being in the art world, just much like you guys, you know, in your worlds and with operating your brands, you have to sort of think about, okay, what if I didn't know this? And it can be intimidating. I'm very, very aware that the art world can be very intimidating, and I think it's sort of designed that way. And there's a lot of egos and things going on there, but I think part of that is important to show that something is very, very precious. You know, there's very, very few things now in our lives that are made by a hand, by a person, that is not a multiple. You know, something so beautiful and enriched with so much history and a story. And I always say to my, you know, if I'm lucky enough to have a conversation with collectors, because I'm not always, you know,
right.
It would have to be me being at a show, or if they reached out to me, but you know, generally it's through galleries, so I don't always get that privilege of speaking to them. But when I do, you know, that if somebody is like maybe unsure about the work, then I think then it's not for them. You know, I think you have to love it, you have to feel something, and you can maybe feel something just at that time in your life. Like at the moment, there's certain artworks that I'm adding to my collection that I know a year ago I might have not wanted, and so it's about speaking to those moments. It should be I feel like a very emotionally led decision, but also a decision that makes you feel the emotions that you want to feel. So for me, you know, I like my collection to be thought-provoking but quite calm. So there's some calmness in there, so you wouldn't necessarily see me with works that are going to be not that I don't like them. I love going to view those types of works in museums and things like that.
Like the book that Allie gave you, I said, oh, this makes me feel so much emotion,
Right,
and it isn't great emotion.
Yes,
and
yes,
you said
yes.
everyone has an interpretation
Yeah.
and then wants to feel something differently.
Definitely. And I think, and there are, you know, there are people there to help you. There are art advisors that will help you advise. But I still think you have to hold on to what you love, because otherwise that diminishes art to being just a product and or decorative. And it's not. It's absolutely not that. And we have to move away from that. It should be something that you feel so drawn to because of the emotions, because of the story. And it's not for me to tell somebody necessarily what that emotion and story is. You know, it can speak for itself. If it says the absolute opposite to somebody, then what was my thought process when I was making it, that's okay too, right? So it's about your visceral reaction. Of course, there are practical elements to consider, like where you're going to put a piece of artwork and those sorts of things too. But again, with collectors, I always say, you know, when they say, oh, I've got this wall and it's this, you know, size. And I say to them, and there may be an epic piece of artwork that really is only going to go in that one place. Huge walls I've done before for people. But I always say to them, well, I think artwork should be moved. It should be moved around your home. So think about that. Don't always think about the wall and the space.
Buy it for the place.
Yeah, because it's going to say a different thing to you in different lights and different times of the day. Move your collection and you'll get something new from it. I guarantee it, if you put it somewhere different. So there's that. But going back to what you're saying about sort of being intimidated, there are really great galleries that you can walk into. I think, you know, places, if you were starting a new collection, maybe ask somebody who you know who's an artist or an art advisor or works in that realm. And it should be an open conversation. And there are a few galleries, I think, nowadays that are going to be very, you know, dismissive of people. I think, to me, I don't know, because, you know, I don't physically like sell my art, but to me, if somebody came in to an art gallery and said, hey, I'm looking for this is my budget, I think that would be a lot easier place to start from than if somebody was like, I'm scared to say, you know, because there's always something for everyone. And even if you went into an art gallery where, you know, everything was over budget, they should also be able to point you in the right direction, because art galleries work together. They have cross-pollination. They pass on artists with different things, you know. So I feel really sorry and sometimes ashamed when people feel like that of the world that that my career is in, because art is really for everybody. That's why we have museums. That's why we have public installations. That's why we can all literally make art at any time. We are, as human beings, that is the one thing that sort of sets us apart from other animal species on the world, is that we create artwork. You know, we create something with our hands that's not just a tool. It's something that is a feeling and an emotion. And so I really think that it should be for everybody. And if I speak to anybody, there's always something, you know, I go from having more accessible editions that are released at certain periods in the year, all the way up to more higher priced original pieces, you know.
But I appreciated your candor with that, and I find that happens with us sometimes too, with people coming into our store. They see diamonds and Rolexes and different Cartier pieces, and they're, oh, well, I can't afford anything. And I say, oh, well, we have pieces that start at a few $100s, and we want you to feel comfortable. We want you to feel you can come have conversations about it. Tell us your budget, your need. And then if you're working towards that special piece, which is a graduation piece or a 21st birthday or a 50th birthday, let us help to make that special, because then it's something that you've worked towards. And I think another thing with art, with beautifully made clothing too, is the that you're creating things that can be used and enjoyed for such a long period of time. And with us, we also tell people that there's a value for it. So when you're not using it, then you could trade it or do something else, which enables you more flexibility as your taste changes, as your journey changes
which isn't
too.
dissimilar to the art world, really, because there's always ways to
secondary market.
Exactly. But how your price point is such that you've made very special pieces. They're not just mass produced, and they're made with craftsmanship to last. How do you sort of walk through your clients with those conversations?
I mean, decisions points, it just goes back to the conversation that we're making pieces to last, and the fabrics are natural. I have this thing where I don't want essentially fossil fuel in my fabrics. I want to keep everything as natural as possible. When you start working with just natural fabrics, I think the most as a fabric I've got that's got maybe 20%, like a polyester in, and which I try to stay away from. When you start working in 100% beautiful natural fabrics, then there's a price point to that, right? When you're making things in New York, people are always having comments and saying, well, you should probably, produce in China, your price points will be a lot less. Well, yeah, they would, but
the quality.
And China does do good quality too, but that's not the point of why I'm doing this. The point is I want to make it here in the country that I live in. And so there's always this, pushback. I would like to make, beautiful things maybe in Italy or France, but I'm not doing that. I'm big on supporting what's going on in New York and trying to support factories, and the garment industry has suffered immensely over these years with people, doing manufacturing in other countries and a lot in China, and not to disparage any of that, but that's just not what I want to do. So yes, my product is expensive. It's not the most expensive by any stretch,
right?
But I'm not creating fast fashion, and that's for a reason, because I want to contribute in a positive way in all aspects of what I'm doing in my business.
So tomorrow at our event, we're also working together with the preservation of the Astrodome. It's interesting living in Texas. There aren't a lot of landmarks like there are throughout the other parts of the country. But I was so appreciative of you guys coming together to find the importance in that, because I think when we just tear down buildings and we discard things, that there's this mindset of things not having value, and that everything can be replaced.
Tearing everything down.
Yeah, and we come from, I mean, how old's your cottage in the UK?
It was built in 1726.
And how beautiful.
Yeah. So, and we come from a country that, we don't do that.
No.
It shocks me when I walk around the neighbourhood and it's like, oh, this is a tear down. I'm like, when was it built? Oh, 1950s?
Yeah.
Already it's being teared down. Why is it not being built with better quality,
Well, yeah, it goes back to that, right? It should have been
built,
with care and good product.
So I think everything that the three of us are doing is that, isn't it? It's leaving something lasting, and something without a lasting footprint on the earth.
Right, yeah.
Well, I've shared that I've bought a piece of art recently. Is there a fashion piece that you've bought that you've been super excited about recently?
Oh, yes. I think you know, don't you?
Okay, share. What did you get?
Well, I don't have it with me because I've come straight from the studio and it's not allowed to go anywhere near my studio, otherwise it will have paint on it. But I bought the most beautiful Bottega cassette bag, right? Is that the name of it? It's the cassette with the strap, and it's in a neutral...
I was going to say, what colour?
Sort of, okay. It's like an off-white, right?
It
is.
Like
a cream. It's not quite cream, but it's like an off-white.
But it can transition between winter to summer, the season list,
I love that as well, is there's no logo on that. So you have to know what it is to know.
That's what I love there.
And the quiet luxury.
It's beautiful. And, all of your
Not
pieces.
to take away from the heritage brands that have logos on, because I think there's something very uniquely special about that. But I do love quiet.
And I have a few of those in my collection too.
Same.
But I think that was just a really important piece for me, and it feels more grown up as well, as I've just had a big birthday. But
You're
yeah,
25.
Yes.
You're officially 25. How does that feel?
But I think, everything in your collection, and, I've been lucky enough to touch and feel, your collection and not just shop.
Well, that's how we met.
That is how we met.
Yeah.
I was invited to an event where Max was showing her pieces, and it was just post-COVID, so we've been very used to being, not being able to do that, and to go and just touch and feel. And my mother is an incredible dressmaker. I mean, so I grew up around fabrics. She knows her stuff. She knows everything. So I know the quality of something, and just feeling your pieces and the weight of the fabrics and the way that they drape and everything, that's an art form in itself. I think, how do you... Sorry, I'm asking the question now. But
no, I want you to.
How do you find
that
the fabric
special
that's
weight,
fit the design, and sometimes I presume the two don't necessarily work.
Yeah, no, exactly. It starts with the fabric.
Okay, and then you find the design to fit. Okay,
and then you look at the fabric first, and then like, how will that drape? How will that hang? How will that construct? Because not all, you can find a fabulous fabric, and then it could not necessarily sew up the way you imagined. It doesn't create the way, or it doesn't hold the shape that you thought it would, and then you're like, okay, scratch that, and again, and then you try something else out. So it's a little bit. So the whole sampling of fabrics is like, you just never know what you're gonna get. You just keep trying.
Do you hold on to some fabrics then in your, like, these I'm always going to use? These are my.
There's some fabrics that just like, okay, this works. I've tested a few, and I know I like that, and that's good.
I do that with my materials in the studio as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So because I want to ask you too, like, medium wise, like, what's your favorite? Because you do oil, acrylic, everything.
So just oil, really. So starting with charcoal, graphite. I've got some favorites there. They're more so favorite brands, and maybe like on the scale of, a pencil, you can have your HB, which is what we all write with, but going up, that's just so boring. But gold, I source from one place now, because even the gold leaf behaves in different ways. It's not all made the same.
And when it turned blue, and it was gold.
Yeah.
It turned blue?
Well, I was using, so that wouldn't be gold leaf, but I was using an oxidized silver. So there's this really beautiful, again, this is so nerdy and boring, but a really beautiful silver that's oxidized, and it's oxidized gold. So it looks like gold leaf, but it's going to change over time. So it's going to grow those beautiful
like a
patinas.
Yes.
And then I'd applied some ink, and when Danae came to the studio, she loved this piece, and I was like, oh no, that one's like kind of an accident, because it had gone blue, and you loved it.
But she had writing underneath it. I loved the layers of her coming through it.
Okay.
And it was so interesting because you were the stamps you used were used with fabrics, right?
Okay.
And so she uses these stamps with this gold, and it is completely, both of you are truly intertwined about you're going back to fashion, you're going to art, and it is such a song together.
Fashion and art's my favorite.
It is.
Together.
I know. All right. Well, ladies, we've come to an end for our moment today, but this was so wonderful.
It's lovely. Great conversation.
It was. I know. We could go on and on. They'll leave more for tonight. Maybe we'll turn the phone on. Oh, no. Just kidding. We won't. All right. Keep living the authentic life, guys. Until next week.